Oh, we're live. All right, welcome to this week's episode of Groups Group. If you are listening out there, would you mind telling me that you can hear me okay? I know that my son Eli usually listens to the first 30 seconds of this. So, hey, buddy, if you're listening, will you let me know that you can hear us okay? I'm going to go around the square here, starting with Sharmi, who is from New Jersey. I believe, well, I don't know, what do you call it? Central or Central Jersey, right?
Central
Central
Jersey.
Jersey. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Central Jersey. I believe the Princeton area, if I'm correct, right?
I'm right in Princeton. Yep.
Oh, okay. That's a beautiful place. So say hello, Sharmi's
Yeah.
from wedding photographer based in Princeton, New Jersey. Say hello.
Hi.
Okay.
I'm also a
uh,
teacher
my
and a mom and all that other stuff.
yes, right. Teacher, mom, all of that stuff. Nikon ambassador, I believe. All of that
Yes.
stuff. To her, well, I guess to the other square is my co-host Jen Lewis from North Carolina.
Good
Big
job, Jay. We're
and
getting broader every week.
I know I'm getting there. And below you is Zofia Crosby, based in Nantucket, correct?
Correct. Correct.
And
Nantucket, little island that maybe some of you have heard of, off Cape Cod.
yes, one of my favorite places on the planet. As a matter of fact, I was so happy today. I'm wearing my little Nantucket Islands
Oh,
bow tie just for you.
oh.
That I bought at, what is the name of that store? I could not remember it on island
Ooh.
there. The
Probably Murray's, the Toggery.
Murray's thing, Murray's
Mm-hmm.
Toggery, which was like one of,
Mm-hmm.
I would shoot a wedding when I go up there and I'd shoot a wedding there and I would spend all of the money in that store on the
Easy.
way out on bow ties. And to her left is David Buck, and David, you are based all over Canada, right?
Hey, no doubt about it. Hey, yeah, we just sit here drinking maple syrup, eating moose meat. The way, yeah, no, everything's we're way up north.
Right on. And so today we're going to be talking about the safety, and those of you who are getting out there again, and those of you that I earlier this week I spoke with Easton Reynolds, who's also based in New Jersey, and he went down to Delaware to shoot a wedding. The bride had told him that all the safety precautions had been put into place, and he shows up, and it was like a regular wedding. There was a full band. Nobody was wearing masks. They were told that there was going to be no dancing, that there was just going to be the first dance. The tables were going to be set properly. And I had watched some of his video feeds. He was posting to Facebook Live during the day, and like my jaw was on the ground. I could not believe it. So anyway, he proceeded to tell the story of how like the day was just like a regular wedding, other than the seating was slightly spaced, and he was really just shocked and was put in a very uncomfortable situation. So, Sharmi, I'm going to start with you. I don't believe you've shot any big weddings at this point. Am I right?
Nope, but I have two next week.
Okay, so tell me about your experience so far and what they're telling you.
So, so my bride for the first wedding is a physician herself, and so she's actually, she's gotten into a couple brawls actually with family members who aren't physicians who wanted her to have more people
Okay.
or laxer rules, and so, um, you know, my guess is that a lot of guests will not wear masks. That is my guess. I am planning for the worst, and so I had a discussion with her about how, I'm not super comfortable doing getting ready inside. I'll come inside with a mask and, do whatever needs to be done inside, but then I'm heading outside, and ideally she can be draped for the wedding outside, 'cause it's an
Mm-hmm.
Indian wedding.
Right.
And I think she's okay with that. And then the ceremony's outside, which is great. Um, However, originally when she hired me, there wasn't supposed to be a reception, and in the last 2 days, her planner has let me know that there's going to be some reception festivities. They'll be introduced. There'll be 6 speeches and a first dance, and then there may be some dance floor. And I made it clear that I will not be shooting a dance floor.
Okay.
New Jersey is not ready for people to be congregating on a dance floor. It's really
Right.
not. It's not allowed in the rules. The venue, as far as I know, is actually being really, really strict. So I don't actually know if they'll allow it.
Okay.
This particular venue is really popular here. But I've been really careful to constantly make my boundaries really clear. And I have an asthmatic child and
Okay.
a 90-year-old grandmother that I like to see. And so I'm gonna be happy to enforce my boundaries should people try to cross them. I do have a true N95 mask for the portion that is inside that 1 hour of like a couple of speeches, whatever. And I spoke to the planner, and they're going to leave all the doors and windows open. But again, I think communication is going to be the big thing, and then a willingness to enforce the boundaries that I'm introducing.
Right. So that's the interesting part that I think. And before I get to that point, Jen, can you do me a favor? Can you just make sure that you can hear my audio on the outbound side, because nobody's responded. So do me a favor. So that's the interesting part that I think is the if anybody gets anything out of this today, watching this or in the next few weeks, is that communication is so paramount. And I know that everybody says I'm communicating with my bride, but even in Easton's case, and this is why I found it so important, I'm glad you went right to it. Even in Easton's case, where he felt he had made this communication with the bride, he had said to himself, there's a couple of red flags here that I'm recognizing. We all know that as wedding photographers, when those red flags go up. And he said there just was a few things that was off, and it's just something wasn't right. And he blamed it on himself, which, again, if you get to that situation now, and I think what needs to be done is you need to say to the bride, and this would be my advice to everybody, would be you need to say to the bride, if I don't feel safe, I'm out. And I need you to understand that. If I'm in an uncomfortable situation, if you're telling me something and then something changes, it's an emotional day, and I want you to understand that if you're lying to me, I'm out. And he was forced, like yourself, have some older people in his family. Next day was Father's Day, and he's like, I'm quarantined for 14 days. I'm not going to see my parents for the next 14 days, which is smart, right? But the result of that was he was unable to see his dad on Father's Day. Not the end of the world, right? But
So I do have a little bit different of a post-wedding plan.
Okay.
I am going to keep my distance from my family for 7 days, and then I'm going to go get tested.
Okay.
And my
Wow.
plan is to invest in testing 7 days after any event that I have to do. I'm taking a very minimal amount because the rules keep evolving. People's weddings are evolving, and so they'll say, "Oh, we're having a backyard wedding with 12 people," which is how this one started.
Mm.
And then because the rules keep evolving, the wedding evolved, and I signed up for one thing and I'm getting something else. And so that's why I'm taking very limited engagements in the first place. But
Right.
if I take one, I'll get tested 7 days later.
Wow, and I hadn't thought of that, and that is super duper smart. Thank you for that suggestion. And because there is, a lot of, I don't know what it is. If you want to be tested where I live, I can walk down the street to the MediMerge and get tested. There's a big sign out front that says testing here, insurance covered. So I don't know what it's like in the rest of the world, but it sounds like, you have medical people in your family, so you probably know where to go. But I'm sure that if you want to find it, you can find it, right?
Not an option here, though. So it is different in different areas. My kid works with a kid he and his entire family were tested positive a couple of weeks ago, and we were about to go on vacation with my elderly parents, and we found out that him and his entire family. And so my son works with him, and we could not get him tested anywhere. So
even now,
I was willing to pay for it.
Yeah,
And we would not
definitely
test
state
him
to
because
state.
he
Okay.
didn't work in a nursing home. He wasn't responsible for the care of elderly person. He didn't work in a jail. So, and even though he had been in contact with someone who tested positive, they would not test him. So it ended up being that it was more than just like, it was like 15 days past the last time he worked with this kid when we left for vacation with my parents. And because they're not super close contact at work, like, you know, it's like at a fast food place. So my kid works outside, the other kid works inside. So we said, well, it's been 15 days. So, you know, we went ahead and went, but it was nerve wracking. I could not believe that after all the money that they pour into making testing available, we couldn't get him tested anywhere. And I'm like, he literally works with a kid who's positive. Like, how do you get more, you know, like risk than that, you know? So, but yeah, it didn't happen. So I think that's a great idea if you're able to do it. Like I said, I was even willing to pay though and couldn't get it done. So it's, you know, it's a great idea if you can though.
So if you're in North Carolina, you need to work in a jail. That was the problem.
A jail or nursing home. Yeah, for real. It's crazy.
No
Symptoms, I should specify. It's because he didn't have any symptoms, because we just wanted to test him to be sure, you know, because there are so many of them are asymptomatic. So, yeah.
So, and that might change soon too. We only started allowing people who are asymptomatic to get tested, I want to say about a week ago. And for us here on the island, we're such a destination area and resort that really it makes sense for the people who are coming to work here part-time just for the summer to get tested as soon as they come here rather than quarantining for those 2 weeks, because those 2 weeks is money lost by the businesses. So that's why they just started offering that for everyone. It's $150, I want to say. It's a drive-through swab through the hospital, so you don't even get out of your car. But we're lucky this just started here, so we weren't even able to have that. We actually don't even have antibody testing here on the island either yet. So hopefully that'll change soon too. I mean, you have to travel off on a ferry or an airplane and then go to Boston. So, you know, get yourself at risk along the way before you get to Boston, which is a hard hit area, get tested there and then come all the way back, which is a risk, you know? Yeah. So hopefully that changes in North Carolina too, and more over the country soon.
So I'm curious.
So I'm hoping it changes because, you know, I think that could have maybe been prevented a little bit if they had made testing more readily available. So
absolutely.
Zofia, what has your experience been on island? So for those of you who aren't familiar with Nantucket, Nantucket is a small island off of Boston, and it's you know, it's a trip to get out there. It's 45 minutes on the ferry.
An hour on the fast ferry.
Hour on the fast ferry.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 20-minute scary plane ride from Boston Airport, which is a lot of fun. But I mean, I have no idea how what's it been like there.
I could go on for about an hour about it. Let's just say right now things are kind of looking up. You know, we are maybe 7,000 people who live here, 1,000 people who live here year round on the books. Mm-hmm. But it swelled up to about 22,000 as soon as this all started, because all of the summer people came here all of a sudden from New York, from Boston, from Chicago, from all these hot areas. So we all started worrying that they weren't going to quarantine at home and they're going to drive around and give it to everybody. So we shut it down. We shut the island down. You could come, but we really enforced masks and we really enforced staying home, and we shut down all the businesses for longer than the rest of the states. Really, like, we were super, super strict. And for 30 something days, we didn't have a case. We had 14 cases, then nothing for a month. And then we just had one a couple days ago. Okay. So we're doing really well. But because we've been very, very strict.
So, I mean, I know how short your season is up there. You're out shooting now, right? What's like so many weddings?
Yeah,
so
weddings
many.
We're doing. Normally, I mean, there's weekends here where we'll have 70 registered weddings in a weekend in those peak dates in September, let's say, and that's a lot for a small place. You know, it's a lot of elopements. You know, out on the beach and stuff like that.
Right.
We personally, as our business, we lost nearly our entire wedding season. We've done 3 very small weddings. We might have a few in the fall that have told me we're ready to downsize. We just don't know what that's going to look like yet. And we're just letting them hold it until they're ready. You know, the governor is going to put out some new regulations in the next month anyway. Let them decide. We're in no hurry to do big weddings, though. We're in absolutely no hurry. None of the vendors are like, oh, let's just do it. No.
So, but are the bigger places like Nantucket Country Club open, or?
No, the golf club shut down all of their events for the spring. They're ready to do the fall, but they're also ready to just go ahead and refund everybody if they decide to cancel. And again, that might really depend on what's going on come July and these new regulations,
Gotcha.
the next phase. Some of the bigger venues absolutely canceled the whole season and refunded 100%.
I want to come back to you to talk to you about any experiences that you've had when you've been out there shooting, but I want to get to, I feel like I'm leaving David where it says Sherry Buck underneath his name there.
Oh, I can talk really high if that helps.
Sherry is his lovely wife, who's not with him today. I guess you guys are shooting separately from each other.
Yeah, we're actually across the country from each other right now.
So tell me,
but it's really interesting. It's really interesting listening to you guys because it's totally different up here. It's the mood is different. The feeling is different. We're all ready to get back to work. There's as far as illness and hospital activity, and it's like there's pretty much nothing going on. So when we if you go out of my house here and down to the highway and just go on with your day, you'd never think anything was going on here. Now in Ontario, which is north of Detroit, it's a bit different.
mm-hmm.
Specifically in Toronto, I haven't been into Toronto in the last 4 months, so I don't know firsthand. But where other places in a small town, it's very similar. Everybody is like, okay, well, these are the rules. Yeah, we're not going to worry about it too much. And there's not much going on, so there's nothing to back up the need to stay separate from everybody and ensure everybody has masks on, and there's very little, shall we say, cross policing among neighbors and friends and whatnot. We're just kind of, you know what, I will happily respect your feelings, your opinions, your space. I'll stay away from you, but whatever you're comfortable, I'm fine with. So that seems to be the general feeling. We're respectful. I mean, we're Canadians. We say sorry
we don't
for
have that
for,
here. Yeah.
we have a general respect for each other's feelings. We don't yell at each other and get excited. If you want to be apart from me, great, be apart from me. That's fine. If you want to be with me, that's fine. You can be with me too. So it as I say, it's very enlightening to me listening to you three, because it's like we did a wedding last weekend. Yeah, last weekend, and it was within the rules that are allowed in this province, aka state for the Americans. But I mean, by the time we got there, it's like, everybody there. I think there was 9 of us. We were all comfortable without wearing masks, so we're like, okay, well, let's just keep these in our pockets, and spent the rest of the afternoon evening in photos with no masks and no worries, and had a lovely wedding. And it was a beautiful actually one of the most beautiful small weddings I've ever been to. So that's not true. It was one of the most beautiful weddings I've ever been to.
If our mitigation was like your mitigation, I think I would feel differently too. But our hospital capacities are not like yours, and are like literally the situation here. Our mitigation techniques are they vary greatly.
Right. So I just find it very interesting, because it's like you can't say one thing, or you say, oh, what is your risk level or your fear level, or because it depends where you are, what's around you, who's doing what, how people are behaving, how they're acting. I feel very comfortable going outside and going about my day the way I would normally without any trouble.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is why I keep asking if I can move in with you.
Absolutely. We've got space.
I don't think, are we allowed to go to Canada right now? Boy,
You can,
No,
yes,
we're
but
not.
yes, you are allowed. You have to quarantine.
What? I lost that. See,
Okay,
that's
well,
the typical Canadian. He didn't want to really give us the answer, so he froze. He froze his screen.
You're allowed to come. You're allowed to come. It's just you have to quarantine for 14 days, and there's. It also depends which province you're coming into.
Right, you're on the West Coast right now, right?
Yeah, I'm moving.
As of today, I've gone back and forth twice in the last month, and I can even tell you about the flying experiences.
Yeah, I want to hear about you. Well, let's finish up on your wedding first. So I want to. So the
So
wedding
I-
that you,
yeah.
but most of the weddings that you've been shooting have been smaller weddings, right? So and a lot of sounds like a lot of
forcibly
outdoors.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, forcibly so, just because of of gathering amounts, and so any venue hosting it can't, obviously by liability, allow for something illegal to happen. So,
Okay.
big weddings that were supposed to be big weddings have become small weddings. The one we did this past weekend was a small wedding with a big Zoom following. So we set up a table with a big 60-inch TV and camera and whatever, so they could be part of the wedding and the bride could feel like everybody was there. And so they basically eloped and then said they're going to do a big reception later next year. So every one of our weddings that we've done, except for the one that was planned to be a 4-person elopement already, has downsized from 100 to 150 person weddings down to, 5 to 20.
Oh, okay. So is there a limit for how many people can be? Like here, we can't have any weddings larger than 50 right now at all.
Yeah, I suspect there is. I honestly don't keep up with it because I don't spend my time looking at that stuff. So
Okay.
I don't know.
Gotcha.
I'm sure there is a limit. I just don't know exactly what it is. I know that it's different in BC and Ontario, so East Coast, West Coast,
Right.
and it's higher in BC than it is in Ontario. So I think 50 is correct at the moment, but
Okay.
I think we're even talking about going higher than that now because, again, there's not much going on.
Now you talked about streaming the wedding, and did you stream the wedding, or was there somebody else that came in to stream? This is for my own curiosity.
I offered,
Okay.
but she had somebody already else set up. We'll do just about anything for our clients. So if they need something done, that's even something we don't do. We'll figure out a way to do it.
Well, the reason that I ask, and I want to ask all of you guys, is that I think for the next couple of years, this is going to be a service that many of us are going to be asked to offer. And I'm curious how, if you guys have done any thinking about it and or are just going to outsource it, or, what your thoughts on that are. I'll let you go first, Sophia.
So, I think that we're definitely going to wrap our heads around how to do it. We have a really good film team out here that we work with often. They're a different business from us, but we've done a wedding just recently with them, and they had a whole production about it. They had cameras set up everywhere, so they're recording all of that, and that's all kind of being broadcast as well. And this is a service now that they've pimped, that they've decided to offer. Because they don't only do weddings, they do big events as well. We have a lot of fundraising events out here.
Yeah.
So because those are not happening this year, they're kind of being, they're doing silent auctions and that kind of thing online. So they're luckily have wrapped their heads around it. But we're not going to be able to have them at every wedding. So we'll definitely figure out how to do it. We want to do it more than just a laptop, that streams something more, because that's something that anybody can do.
Right.
So, yeah, for sure.
Okay. What about you, Sharmi?
Yeah.
I just, there's a company I work with. I'm not capable of doing anything more than like setting up a laptop. So, and I don't want to learn either. So I have a really good friend, Ben Davis, who, he has a film company, but also he's really good at like live production and like switching angles live and doing all that stuff. And so, I'm totally just sending them to him and being like, you should hire him. He can do a whole live production thing for you. And, people can watch in real time, close, far, whatever, like they're watching a movie. And it'll be better than me and my Facebook live stream.
I mean, I'm sure your Facebook live streams are pretty good, though.
They're a little bit simplistic, but yeah.
All right. So where do I want to go with this next? We are at about 23 minutes, and I'm curious, David, your thoughts on. I'm going to ask all of you guys this, and I'll put you on the spot. David, you walk into a situation that you're just not comfortable with. What are you going to do?
It would take a lot for me to not be comfortable in life in general. Okay?
Gotcha.
There's where we deal with outside of COVID, we deal with risk every day. We deal with fear every day. We deal with choices. We get in our cars and drive to the grocery store. We could crash and die. It's possible. We fly all over the world for different things. the plane can crash. I just went up in a helicopter a couple of days ago. Blade rotor could come off, and we ended up dying. So death is all around us all the time, anyways, and we make choices based on what our comfort level is, what our fear level is, and what we deem to be in the best interest of ourselves, our family, those around us, and are making those decisions all the time. So, as far as this is concerned, if there's a situation that I see coming up where I was going to be uncomfortable with it, I probably would say no to the whole activity to begin with. Personally, in the situation that we're in, where we are, what we're doing, I do feel comfortable, so I'm not going to not go. Whatever our clients do, I'm going to be there to capture for them. If it's required that I shoot long lens with a mask on, with a hazmat suit, I'll do that too. Whatever. I'm a service provider, and I'm going to take whatever precautions I need to take in order to feel comfortable to do the job. But also understanding that I can climb over cliffs and rocks to take photos in really awkward positions. Well, I could fall off there and crack my head open and die. So there's risk that we do every day. I'm not going to live my life choosing to be in fear. I'm going to be aware of what's going on and making choices based on what's happening today.
Okay. All right. How about you, Sophia?
Yeah, I don't view any of this as, I'm making a choice for myself. I'm going into a situation being protected no matter what. So if I show up somewhere and people are not following the rules, I keep saying to my husband every single day when we see somebody doing something wrong, you can only control what you can control. I can't control how many people are filling the room or what rules they're breaking, but I can make sure that I'm wearing a mask and make sure that I'm staying away from people and not getting in their faces and shooting with a long lens, and that I'm communicating. And it's not really going to be with the couple. I'm communicating with the planners and with the venue, because the couple, they're going to say what they want to say. But if the venue, I have the advantage of living in a really small town where if you lie to me, everybody's going to know in 5 minutes, and the rest of the vendors are going to be mad at you. So it's not going to happen.
Okay.
I'm going to be protected because it's not me falling off a cliff. It's me giving it to my mom, and it's me giving it to my daughter, and it's me spreading it to everybody that I would feel terrible about. So it's that kind of liability and that responsibility that I'm taking, but that I'm controlling for my own self. I can't control what anybody else does.
But you do bring an interesting point, and I think this is some of the stuff that's been missing. And I think as a whole, as photographers, you live in a small community. I know that you spend a lot of time networking with the people that you work with. You're fortunate in the sense it's, disadvantage and advantage of living in a small area, right? You know everybody. If you don't like someone, then that becomes a problem, right? But you have the advantage of using your community to help keep you safe, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so that makes you a lot more comfortable. Whereas, in Easton's case, he didn't have the benefit of the community on his side. It was, I'm going to a venue that I'm not super familiar with, and that kind of makes me think that, some advice that I would offer going forward is that if you're not familiar with that venue, maybe there's time to have a conversation with them, or, and he was talking about, he was like, it was a 90-minute cocktail hour with no past hors d'oeuvres because they weren't allowed to do past hors d'oeuvres. Can you imagine what 100 wedding guests are like after 90 minutes of drinking? Like, yeah. It's not good. I don't care. It's not good. You're a mess. So your inhibitions are going to come down. And things are going to happen, which is, the dancing and, all of that stuff. And listen, this is a terrible year to get married. Can you imagine being a bride or a groom this year? That would suck. It's just, my heart goes out to all of them. So I don't know what that situation. And for those of you, so actually, Charmy, I'm curious. I used to shoot a lot of big Indian weddings as well in the New York, New Jersey area. It were some of my favorite weddings. I miss them so much. What do you think happens with big weddings for the next couple of years? Like, so it sounds like, I think you had written in the forum that we were in that the room was, they were going into a larger room and there was only going to be about 100 guests for this weekend, you said?
So the room is for 500 people, and there'll be 100 people in it. And so the thing for me is, so that's two questions. Number one, what will happen to Indian weddings? I think a lot of people are trying to find out ways to have them outdoors since transmission outdoors is so much lower.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're scaling them down a bit, but
That's a
most of
big
my clients
mundap.
are rescheduling because, yeah, most of my clients are rescheduling for next year because not only because they want to have the wedding they imagined, but also because all of them, almost every single one, is either a physician, married to a physician, or marrying a physician, or the child of a physician, and they're all tired.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Oh, I
they're
didn't think. Okay.
exhausted.
Yeah.
I have I have a couple that was supposed to get married June 23rd, and they could have had some sort of wedding, but she's an ICU nurse in New York City, and he's an ICU doctor in Philly, and they were just like, we're just tired, like, and we're not even done, and there's going to be a second wave, and like they had no time to see each other because there's staff shortages because they get sick most often because they're exposed most often, and so they're overworked and they're exhausted, and that is the case for the majority of my clients. The majority of my clients are Indian people who are in healthcare. And so aside from the fact that they want the wedding they imagined, they also are just tired. So there's that. The second thing for me is I feel pretty protected by the fact that they are physicians and they do take what's happening seriously. They're on the front lines of seeing people live with all these side effects after, not even just the death that they were surrounded by, but also the survival and the consequences of it after. They're ICU doctors and nurses and cardiologists and pulmonologists, like they're seeing it every day, so they take it very seriously. And so that is a level of protection that I have, but I've also made it very clear this is not a fear thing. To be clear, I do not wear a seatbelt because I am scared to die. I already flew out of a car once. There's about 200 stitches on my face.
Oh.
I don't think decisions are being made in fear. They are being made weighing a risk benefit. I love my clients. There's a lot I'll do for them. I'm not going to put my grandmother at risk for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the risk benefit, it factors in a very rational way in the decisions that I'll make. And I think they're all aware of that because they all have 90-year-old grandparents who they want to see be at the wedding and stuff. So, yeah, I'm perfectly happy to talk about what my boundaries are with the couples. And then I am very comfortable enforcing my boundaries.
Okay.
And if that means they're a little bit upset, I mean, then they'll have to be a little upset. But I'm not going to do anything that's, there's a lot of things that couples will ask you to do, and I've been asked to do some things, and there's a lot that I will do, but there are boundaries. I'm a human being. I have a family. They're more important than my job, and that's it.
So last question, then I know you have to leave. It's also Sharmi's birthday
Yeah.
today, so I don't know if I said that at the beginning. Let's wish Sharmi a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Last question. Large weddings in general, do they not exist until we have a vaccine? Yes or no?
Yeah. Maybe not a vaccine. I think it might just be a treatment. Like as soon as the thing is, we've come so far in 4 months, being surrounded by medical people. I hear constantly like, we figured this out and now we're going to be able to treat it this way. I'm like, I don't even understand half of what they're saying. But I think the more time they have to treat it and deal with it, the better they're going to get at it. And, I think that once they get a real handle on it and when New Jersey was getting better, I was like, you guys aren't going to get any experience anymore. And they were like, that's a good thing. But now they're getting more experience. They're getting more experience, sadly, in Arizona and Texas and in Florida. And I think the more they deal with it, the more they're going to figure it out. And so maybe it won't even be a vaccine. Maybe there'll be some sort of treatment or drug or something that minimizes a lot of the post-COVID results we're seeing in people who survive and lowers the death rate. And then we can have our lives back. I think humans are very, very resilient. We like to forget pain, and we like, it's a bad thing and a good thing. We want to be happy, which is the good thing. And I think that once we have a handle on it, we'll all want our lives back, and big weddings will come back full force.
Okay. I mean, they said on the news we were close to a vaccine. Now it doesn't sound like you agree. Do you know something I don't?
I mean, no, I'm not saying we're not. I'm not saying we're not. I'm just saying, well, according to all of the people in my family, phase 3 trials, like we won't know anything until they're over. They could be like, yep, we spent 6 months and that was nothing. So
Yeah.
we won't know until we know. So in the meantime, for the naysayers who are like, this is going to change weddings forever, I disagree. I don't think human beings do not function in a way where we give things up, especially not each other and our social interactions. Like we're not going to give up being with all our family at once, the one opportunity we get. We're not going to give that up.
Right. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go if you need to run. I'm going to ask these guys a couple more questions. Sharmi, thank you so much for being on here today. Happy birthday. And I hope you're doing something fun today. Yes. Bye. All right, guys. So I think I'm going to make it a little bit more. We'll wrap up soon. Yeah, we're at 35 minutes. We'll wrap up soon. Is there anything before I go on? Is there anything that you guys want to add that you might have missed that you want to add? Nothing.
You had mentioned about flying at one point, so
oh
if
yeah,
want
thank
to
you.
talk about that,
I do want to talk about that. So you've only flown in Canada, right?
Yeah, it's been
domestically.
Well, if I leave Canada, I got to quarantine when I come back, so I don't really want to do that.
Gotcha.
We can fly out of country. We can go to Mexico. We can go to there's a couple of other countries that some people are going to, and it's fine to do. Just got to stay home for 14 days once you get back.
Okay.
But yeah, I've just basically Vancouver to Toronto, about a month and a half ago, and then again the other way a week ago, a little over a week ago, and for me it was actually, if I can speak frankly, it was very depressing. I love airplanes. I love aviation. I love everything to do with flying and travel and all that kind of stuff. And I was laying over in the Calgary airport. And all the WestJet a bunch of WestJet planes and a bunch of Air Canada planes are just parked there on the tarmac. They've got half the airport shut down completely and an entire runway filled with.
And those are huge
a typical landing runway
airports. Both of them.
And it honestly, I just stood there for probably 10 minutes and just I cried because it's an entire, for whatever the cause, which is, we know what it is, but for whatever the cause, the entire industry is shut down. WestJet, one of our major Canadian carriers, just laid off 60% of their staff.
Wow. And
said, we're just going to outsource all of our baggage handlers and all of our ground crew, not even have them anymore at this point because we just can't, call center staff. And I just, it's just sad to me. So the actual experience of flying was as easy as it's ever been. In fact, it was overly easy because they took out all the body scanners, and then so it's back to just metal detectors. The flight itself was a normal flight itself, only it was a bit cleaner.
Right.
And there was a temperature check before we got on the plane. But as far as like the mood of people and whatever, it was just quiet.
Right.
But as far as the actual activity of flying, getting through the airport, it was way too easy.
Huh.
It's way too easy. So anyways, it's
plane, like, were they spacing you guys on the plane?
So the WestJet flight from Vancouver to Toronto was through Calgary. So we had a Bombardier, 2 and 2 on the way there, and they were just booking one person per side. This is the month and a half ago one, and then WestJet was booking 1, 3, 4, and 6 as far as the 3 and 3 seats on 737s, and it was probably that was 60% full. Now on the way back, a month and a half later, the flight that I took with a different airline was full, which made me happy because I like economic activity and flying and all that kind of stuff. So everybody was very respectful. They changed their boarding policies so that they actually boarded the last two rows, then the next two, then the next two, then the next two, and then the next two. And so it was very smooth, and again, everybody was respectful. But I mean, it only works to a point because the amount of space that we were taking up, waiting to get on the plane wouldn't work for 6 gates in a row. There would be more people than you would be able to have there. But it was probably 3 times busier in the airport a month later than it was a
Okay.
month and a half ago.
I mean, Jen and I both love to fly like yourself, so I haven't been on an airplane in so long. Zofia, have you had to travel off island at all, or?
No, we went to Florida and Boston in February, came back, and this hit like a day later. Like we just got back by the skin of our teeth. Like we haven't left then, and luckily we hadn't had any plans at all to leave. We really don't go off island until the winter as it is. We stay put here in season, so we didn't have any plans, and we actually luckily did quite a bit of traveling this winter, so we kind of got it out of our system too.
Now, I'm curious. You've had a ton of weddings rescheduled, and I've been asking every wedding photographer this. You've rescheduled, and I asked JB this recently, and I'm curious how you're handling. So what I think is really difficult with all these reschedules is let's say you have a Saturday booked for this weekend, right? Tomorrow. And they're going to reschedule for a Saturday in June. Now you're losing 2 dates, right? You're losing 2 huge dates. If you're comfortable talking about it, what JB said he was doing was that he was going to his clients and saying, you can rebook this wedding next year. I'm going to charge you an extra $1,000 to do it. And you're more than welcome to have it. Otherwise, you can have it any other day of the week, but that one day. Is there a way that you're handling this one way or another? You're just rebooking and you just have to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't do that because our season is so short and there are only so many days that a venue can have a wedding here. Our season really is June, a couple days in summer that certain venues will allow, and then September and October, and that's it. So those are the only dates you're going to get married out here. And yeah, you could do a Thursday, Friday, Sunday wedding, and some couples are, which is wonderful. Some just, paid their $150,000 venue fee and don't want to give that up for a Friday next year. They feel like it's kind of owed to them, and I kind of agree with them. So they're taking that date next year. And you know what? I can't justify charging somebody $1,000 because, not to whatever, but we charge quite a bit for our weddings. Yeah. $1,000 isn't that much more on top of anything. It just makes us look like we're just trying to get something for our trouble. Really, what the trouble is the full price. Right. That's really what we're losing. The full wedding, not $1,000. They're not even half. We're losing a whole wedding that day. Mm-hmm. So we're just taking the hit, we're just doing it. That's it. We're rescheduling as they come, and we're letting people get married when they want to. And we just know that the next probably 2 years will be making all this time up.
Well, and hopefully as a result, yeah. Yeah, and JB justified it in a different way. I forget how. I think he was offering some additional things. He was just saying like, look, I only shoot 10 or 15 weddings a year, and I'm just not willing to, give this up, and I'm asking these people to pay this, and I'm giving something if you agree to do that. Like he was giving some extra print credits or something like that as well. As a result. So, I could see both sides of it. I could also see, not to generalize, maybe a little bit easier to get away with that in Texas versus a Northeast client. I'm just, I ran my business, and I think I was thinking to myself, would I be able to do that in New York City? I'm not really sure, but I think, again, it's all how you position it, and we're all trying to feed our families. So to each his own. And, he said he wasn't, if a client really pushed back, he really wasn't, going to make a big deal out of it. But I am really feeling for you guys with these rescheduled weddings. And I'm curious, I'll throw this out to both of you guys. I have a couple of friends who are now getting cancellations. They want their full refund back. And I think a lot of photographers, if they're getting pushback, they're just giving money back, right? And they're turning around and they're rebooking cheaper photographers. Have you run into this at all? And I think this is a really shitty thing that's happening.
I'll answer that. At the very beginning of this, we were getting those frantic emails, we're canceling, and we let people sit on it for a minute. We didn't write back right away. We're like, okay, let you talk to your other vendors and see what's going on. Just stew on this for a second. And we, with these, would write back and be like, oh, I'll get back to you after the weekend.
Right.
every one of them, minus one who I know now is going to downsize, every one of them came back and said, actually, we are going to get married that day. Actually, we are going to downsize, because they started seeing downsized weddings all over the news. And they started realizing, wait a minute, this could be actually cute and fun. We can elope, or we can have a very small wedding. We can have a rager next year, and it can be great.
Yeah.
We're one of the only vendors really that aren't sacrificed in an elopement. You might not do video. You might not do transportation. You might not go nuts on flowers, blah, blah, blah. You'll still have a photographer. You know, even if it's a 2-hour coverage now, you'll still have me. And you might have only paid for half of my package so far, but you're going to use that up now, you know? So we, knock on wood, I only have one client who I'm just still waiting to hear from, but no one who has said they're canceling has canceled. No one.
And
It's interesting to hear. Our clients are super awesome, and more so even going through this. I even had one this past week that said, okay, we're having a shorter wedding. In fact, it's going to be 1 day instead of 2 days, but we're going to reschedule it in a way that we're canceling as few of your services as possible that we had originally booked. So we can basically make your fee as high as possible for this day. We've had one that is not sure if it's going to go on because he's American, she's Canadian, and there's a travel problem there. But outside of that, everything is still either going on. It might be smaller, it might be less, but it's we've had nobody try to screw us.
well, that's good. And, you know, I think for the most part, the few people that I did talk to were definitely more, which is ironic, that they were more on the budget side to begin with, and they were looking for somebody even cheaper, which just goes to show you, you know, garbage in, garbage out, right? So, and there's a business model for that too, if that's the way you've set your up. And none of the people that you guys and Charmy, none of you guys all do beautiful work. And, you know, I can see why your clients would want to work with you. So, Zofia, if you get super busy next year and you need a seasoned shooter who knows the island well,
Honestly,
I'll
I might
just pitch
be
a tent in
calling
the
you.
backyard. I'll pitch a tent in the backyard. I'll come live there for the month.
Can I
Or
just tell you
actually,
right
we'll
now-
find some. You know what? I'll tell you what. We'll find some place to rent. We'll just bring the whole family there for a couple of months.
Just quarantine first. We
Yes.
have 10 weddings right now scheduled for this fall that we're needing to reschedule. 10. So somehow those 10 are going to have to find a spot next year if they don't have a wedding this year. So I just might be calling you.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we'll wrap up here on that note. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk about this, and I do continue to hope that things will open up and change, and you know, we have some progress with this virus. I know Jen and I have spent a lot of time talking about, you know, different attitudes, and it is from where we were in late February to where we are right now. There's so many things that I just never predicted. I expected us to be all out there shooting by now, and things were going to open up back up again. And now it looks like we may go into a second wave, and people are, you know, people's mindsets are changing. And I wasn't really expecting that. As crazy it is of people not wearing masks and stuff like that, like people are changing their attitudes about the way they're planning big events and doing things. So as much as I do think we're still going to have big weddings, I think there's going to be a slight change in how those events go off for the next bunch of years. Would you guys agree with that?
I'd agree
We're
with
going to
that.
we're going to see a lot more tented weddings, which we're lucky to have here, but a lot more
Yeah.
outdoor tented weddings. Yeah.
Does that mean fewer winter weddings in Canada?
None here. Actually, I have one this year.
Could they put up a big tent in Nantucket? It'd probably blow away in the wintertime.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, happy Friday to you guys. If you are getting out there this weekend, all of you that are listening or listen to the rebroadcasts, stay safe. Remember, the communication is the most important part, and you know, be well. Thank you guys so much for being on here today.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Pat.
All right. This is usually the part where, like, I'm not sure it really ends, and I'm going to do it. But hang on, guys.
Roll W.
Are you sure you want to end? Yes, I do. All right.